Hi, everyone. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. We're going to be talking about the wheel, what it means to society, and where it's going. Amidst the vast expanse of the cosmos, in a universe of quarks and rays, neutrons and neutrinos, cryptids and curiosities, there is but one exquisite mystery that shines brighter than the rest. With an elegance that incites unparalleled curiosity, this enigma has so wholly captured the human imagination that our infatuation with it has seamlessly integrated into all levels of our cultural vernacular. It exists everywhere, flooding our language, commandeering our metaphors, and dictating the conceptual framework of discourse. I am, of course, talking about the circle and the quest for its perfection. In the primordial muck of early human cognition, long before the circle was manifest in art, language, and mathematics, the circle was intimately familiar to our most ancient hominid ancestors in the form of the brilliant white of the sun, the cold blue of the moon, and the abyssal black of a loved one's eyes. Seen and known to ancient artisans and toolmakers, no doubt the ability to craft and mimic its uncanny perfection must have remained the purview of the gods. Archaeology finds throughout the globe paint a picture of an ancient world fascinated with the circle and its link to both the physical and metaphysical worlds. Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, Machu Picchu, the Nazca Lines, Atlantis, Lemuria, and those that lay undiscovered below our feet in the rubble and refuse of time. Calendars, altars, gathering spaces, and the mystical nodes laid up the charged intricacies of ley lines. On holy and unholy ground alike, the circle is a fundamental motif. The model currently accepted by leading academics is that the circle represents an idea of form that transcends any synthetic conception of a moral paradigm. Leading thinkers now suspect that the mystery of the circle lies hidden within its code, the infinite stretch of its calculation, pi, 3.14 whatever, a non-repeating series of numbers that has beguiled the most astute members of the modern scientific community. Inscrutable and irascible, this number extends forever, never repeating, never ending. The infinite possibilities of perfection. Could it be that one of these ancient cultures, now lost to history, somehow cracked the code? Is their total destruction the price they paid for this celestial knowledge? All possibilities are on the table. While these advanced civilizations have been lost to history, the progress of the modern world is marked by the serendipity of a particular milestone. It is no coincidence that as the unified pictograms and metaphors of a codified written language were being scored into clay tablets in service to commerce and religion upon the fecund plains of the Fertile Crescent, the circle was being enjoined to become a physically consequential actor in the arc of human development. What cannot be disputed is that at precisely the time that language is being captured from the air and wrestled into a physical construct, the wheel, venerated in antiquity and widely understood as the metaphor for the circle, was born to humanity. Let's take a moment to appreciate the fantastic leap of imagination and ingenuity that had to be taken to dare to pluck the circle from the sky, to tempt the ire of the gods and bring forth this venerable gift, the wheel requested by the service of man. There are those who will argue that Prometheus, in his act of larceny, bestowed humankind with the gift of fire. But did this gift not already appear readily in the physical world, the bullish result of a lightning bolt's brief exclaim? Was not Zeus showing his cards long before this famed heist? Imagine the first soul to wheel a car into the commons. The ease, the lack of burden, the utterly cool nonchalance, as if to say, sure, fire is nice, but how are you going to take it with you? Cut to sweeping hand gestures in front of this cart's wheels. Consider the stillness of the bazaar, the now roaring sound of a gentle breeze, the distant twittering of a lark. Here we see many toothless mouths agape, eyes red and dried in blinkless disbelief, their hearts palpitating. What is this chimera? What sorcery? To no longer drag, skid, or scrape, but simply roll an object from the fields. Such must have been the elation in that moment. So reckless the emancipation of burden that it's certain there are those who hung on to their previous ways, content to drag and skid their way across their cracked and barren fields. Hanging on to the rim of an idea without bowing to the power of this mighty disk. But I digress. Since the first day of humble triumph, humankind has sought to improve on its own rudimentary interpretations and thus increase the performance of the wheels, while harboring the vainglorious conceit to someday rival the perfection so promised in the fine shapes and trajectories of our vaunted celestial entities. Today, in an era of 5G televised 10-minute bits coming live to SoundCloud tweens and luxury crocs, suckling digital comms while feeding on ephemeral berries harvested from the opposite side of the equator, brought over in clear little boxes, non-recyclable, forever after plastic containers built with the endurance to see the end of the world, the modern wheel remains imperfect. It's no surprise to this observer that the inadequate precision of language mirrors the imperfect roundness of our wheels, despite centuries of innovation and experimentation. It cannot be denied that the historical deceptions of the Tower of Babel display an edifice of obvious circularity, a structure of concentric layers spiraling in vapid blasphemy as it reaches towards the heavens. And while the myth of Babel is meant to warn against our hubris, so too the unsolvable riddle of the wheel. That is not to say we go without trying. So it is here we find ourselves in the world of the circle, lavish in the center of our own concentricities, radiating and receiving the tensions of our interactions. The circle, the wheel, is a ubiquitous form, a shape building our language into a metaphor that outlines our path of spirit. And it is essential to our most cherished of inventions, the bicycle. The bicycle, poet and partner to the wheel, has seen its share of voracious innovation. Today we take a look at a very peculiar and knowing set of tires and wheels, creations that this observer thinks have been created with a keen awareness of the transcendent power of the wheel. It should come as no surprise to the clever observer that I'd be talking about the Ultra Dynamico Rosé Race 650B tires and the Reval
Terra CLX EVO 650B wheel set.
There are many forked paths that could be taken in order to assess this particular wheel set. So before blindly diving into the labyrinth, let me outline my approach. It will come in two parts: material symbolism, metaphysics experience. Through a focused and rigorous approach to each outline section, you will see how the combination of these two products is nothing less than alchemical. Material symbolism. For our purposes, it does us no good to distinguish between the tire and the wheel. But considering the velocity of our inherited economy, it behooves us to make an attempt. It could therefore be construed that the relationship between wheel and tire is a political one. The wheel bureaucratic, the tire proletarian. The wheel, untouched by the salt of the earth, plays the implacable, supportive, and consistent role, while the tire remains accommodating, pliable, and open to conversation. In this case, the dialectic between Reval and the Ultra Dynamico Rosé provides an abundantly fruitful riding experience. One notes echoes of the Habermasian public sphere, that the Reval wheels are made of carbon, the fourth most abundant element in the universe, and the foundational element of all life as we know it is intrinsic to its existence as a metaphor as well as its being as object. That carbon is the building block of any organism and presses upon the invested observer the need to consider what people who describe metal rims as having a lively feel actually mean, when in fact it's the carbon wheel that is closest to being alive. No doubt the internal structure of these magnificent rims is some sort of fantastic allotrope well on its way to becoming a diamond, a structure that allows for it to at once be both distinctly rigid and notably light. So the wheel accounts for cutting-edge technology, a techno-futurist's realization, a cold, clear, competent, and complete engineering marvel. The cosmos is also a ledger, and its balance is strictly enforced. The infinite yet simultaneously definable totality of everything means nothing can be gained and nothing lost. When shifts and moves happen, when energy is drawn, then energy must also be given. From the macro to the micro, the hyper to the hypo, we are determined participants in a transcendent equilibrium. Naturally and necessarily, this applies to our wheels. It was with clear eyes and hard science that the Reval was born, and so it seems only fitting to pair it with the Ultra Dynamico Rosé. Constructed of the finest rubber and manufactured in the heritage molds and presses of the venerable Panaracer facility, the Ultra Dynamico Rosé draws its design inspiration from folklore and oral tradition. Here we see the triangle, the pyramid, as the focal point of the tread design, acknowledging the power of the number 3, second only to the circle in physical and spiritual impact. The triangle rides upon a bed of squares. The geometric significance cannot be overlooked. Of course, this indication of diffusion from triangle into the wheel is an indication of diffusion of all shape into the circle. The tread itself tells the story of this connection. As our eyes move to the edge of the tire, we gaze across a section of smooth and undisturbed rubber. One can't help but think of a primordial sea or the empty unconsciousness of enlightenment. Once through this space and emerging at its far shore, we see the cornering tread design. Edgy and hollow, this triangular protozoa remains unfilled. This is a most primitive and accepting evolutionary nod to shape. That it is not formally codified is meant to recognize its malleability, as if the shape itself is having a conversation with the future, saying, whatever comes my way, I will shape to you, evolve to your offering. Moving on from the tread, the fine gray colors of these tires must also be commented upon. This is the arresting hue of a coming storm, portentous and promising. What memories will be made from the swirling of its movement? What growth rent from its gnashing and thrall? Keen observers will note that this review eschews the use of lab testing and the resulting scientific prattle, as it is my experience that the resultant numbers and formulas are the chimeras of deceit and misdirection that have so plunged our modern world into such dire straits, as such, not worth investigating. You want numbers? Well, Pi will give you all the numbers you need and more. Metaphysics experience. Really, what is a wheel, a tire, a circle, but a conversation between all parts radiant and a dialogue with all other parts radiant? The Earth, as we know, is a sphere, which is a circle infinite in its embrace. Here our mother floats in space, in a vacuum drawn by gravity, repelled by velocity, alone and yet so full. It is here that the circle, the wheel, the tire, and spoke and hub and rim are called to our only mother, where a wheel can find another wheel, moments of connection on the radii of the infinite sphere. Here we are tested by the opaque hubris of consciousness. The truth of the matter is that our rational zealotry is the only effectively detrimental input into the synergy of circles. Don't we say, go with the flow? Isn't it true that all transcendental writing is accomplished outside of thought, in the moment, and moments when our input is not input at all, but acceptance? The wheel, the tire, the earth, the sphere, the circle, the eye, the circuitry, our nervous system, our conscious system, all harmonized in a welcoming synergy. Conditions of the road. Its undulations and aggravations are of no true concern to the wheel. Its only job is to remain consistent and true. It knows nothing of the variation in terrain upon which it rolls. To the wheel, it's all the same. Ultimately, you ride with the wheels. Learn from them. They have much to teach.